life. What is sugar doing to us for everyday life? It's breaking out our skin. It's making you tired. It's making you irritable. You can't think straight. You have brain fog. You've got belly fat. You've got bloat. So you've got joint pain, inflammation.
So welcome, JJ Virgin. It's really an honor to have you here to give us the secret, the strategy for a fast and lasting weight loss. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Let's not have it be a secret.
It's a secret. Maybe it's not a secret, actually, but maybe we need to know a little bit more about it. Well, but maybe first you want to tell us a little bit more about your personal health journey.
I've always been kind of a very focused and obsessed with health. I grew up in Berkeley, California, farm to table. I taught dance class and exercise classes, but it was interesting. I thought I was eating really healthy, and I actually had a ton of sugar in my diet. I remember I think one of the first frozen yogurt stores in the country came out in Berkeley, and I would go over there because it was so much healthier than ice cream. Like, not really, it's exactly the same, you know? And I started eating carob instead of chocolate because it was healthier. And, you know, just all sorts of these things that we think we're doing that are so great, like eating bran muffins, because those are healthy, and granola bars and all that stuff. And so it's interesting kind of looking back now, because until I really cracked the code and figured out how sugar was sneaking in so many places, I didn't realize how much was in my diet and how much it was impacting me every day, from my mood to my skin to my energy levels. And I think that's, you know, a big issue for everybody, because so many of these things that you know, pretend they pose as health foods, or they seem like they're healthy, like the green drink with more sugar in it than a soda, right? Or these salad dressings that say they're low fat, but it's like putting, you know, turning your salad into a sundae. So many of us are being duped by this misinformation, and it's making us gain weight. It's making us tired. It's making us break out, be bloated, not be able to think straight. So that's what I'm on a mission now to fix.
Yeah, actually, I can also really relate to that in that sense, because I grew up constipated and I didn't know what to do. After a few years, the dietitian first told me to go gluten-free and dairy-free. So then, because I had to go gluten-free, I started buying all kind of refined starches, like tapioca starch flours, and all kind of muffins and gluten-free bread made with all those refined flours that, as you said, have as much sugar as the other one.
You did a gluten-free junk food diet.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about sugars, and you mentioned, you know, frozen yogurt, same as ice cream, bran muffins, same as the other muffins. So how can you explain, do you think all sugars are made equal, or there's a difference between them?
So when you look at all of this, you really have to look at hormones. One of the first things that I started to say 25 years ago, when I started to really look at weight, and I realized what I was being taught in school, which was eat less, exercise more, wasn't working. And I went, all right, what's going on? And it's that our body's not a bank account, it's a chemistry lab. And all of this, you know, information from food and exercise and sleep and stress too, but today we're talking food, has a hormonal effect on your body. And you want to make sure that the effect is to burn off fat and have stable blood sugar and great energy, not store fat and crash and burn. And so when we look at sugar, it's not about eating no sugar. It's really understanding which to choose and which to lose, and to realize that everything that we're eating, you know, all carbohydrates except for fiber, are going to turn to sugar. It's just a matter of, is your body making it slowly from the foods you eat, or is it mainlining it? You know, if you're eating like something, say, let's say white bread with some jam on it, well, that's a mainline, right? That's really easy to do. Or even a, you know, candy bar, or a lot of these yogurts out there with fruit sweetened stuff in them. But if you're eating something like wild rice, well, that's carbohydrates, but your body has to work really hard to turn that into sugar in your body. So we want to make sure that you're eating, you know, that all carbs turn to sugar, that you're not eating more than you need because this is more easily stored as fat than anything else on your body, but you are getting enough, because while some people can do fine on something like a ketogenic diet, cycling, most of us do better when we have some carbs in our diet. It's just really knowing which ones.
So when you say how much sugar we can eat, so that's the magic question. How
Yes.
many carbohydrates, how much sugar we can eat today?
And it's the question I get asked all the time. And the answer is, it depends, which is not the answer anybody wants. And so here's the bigger thing. There is no one diet for everybody. I think that probably if you look at the diet books out there and you looked at the people who wrote them, you'd realize that whatever their issue is, they wrote the diet book about, and then they think everybody should be on that diet. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The idea that there be one diet that we should eat now and for the rest of our lives doesn't make sense for a couple different reasons. Number one, things change dramatically as you go through different hormone cycles. So a woman at 25 is very different than a woman at 55. And it may change based on, let's say, your ethnicity, where you currently live, the season that you're in. We should be eating seasonal, local, and rotating what we're eating. Any health problems you have, any challenges you're facing, and what your lifestyle's like. So all of those things come into play, and what your goals are. What's your outcome? Are you training for a marathon, or are you a couch potato? So all of those things need to be factored into a diet. And then you can figure out from that what you need to be eating. When I wrote the Sugar Impact Diet, it was to help people first identify where sugar's sneaking into their diet, and then help them go through a detox and reset period so that they no longer had a sweet tooth and they could get those carbs and fructose way, way down. And then to go back and start to add food back in to say, where do I feel best? Like I find I feel best when I eat a pretty low carbohydrate, very low sugar diet, and that I have the majority of my carbs a little bit later in the day because they help me sleep. And if I eat no carbs at all, I can do that for, if I eat more of a ketogenic diet. So let's say 50 grams of carbs overall for the day. And ketogenic diets, depending, will be anywhere from 5 grams to 50 grams. I'll feel best for a couple days, but then I don't feel good after that and I don't sleep well. So it depends on the person and what's going on, right? What age they are, if they have thyroid and adrenal problems, etc. The bigger concept is that we need to connect the dots, in that I feel like a lot of these diets take you very far away from understanding how you feel when you're eating this way and why you're doing this in the first place. It's why the single most important tool I think you can use to be healthy is a food journal, where you're not just writing down what you eat and how much of it, you're also writing down when you're eating and how you're feeling, so that you can really connect the dots between what you're eating, when you're eating it, and how you feel and what's going on with your weight, so you can see if something's working for you or if it's not.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is one of the most powerful tools when somebody starts making any kind of lifestyle change in health, to identify which are the foods that are good for them and which ones are not. Because as you said, there's not one diet that fits everyone. That's very important. And then talking about sugar and how to control it, I think the main problem has been that we constantly keep giving spikes of insulin to the body, and we are surrounded by really high glycemic index foods. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what is really wrong about the glycemic index and why, how has failed us.
Yeah, because you can actually eat something that on the label will say low glycemic index, but can be worse. So the first way we really started to look at sugar was through the glycemic index, which is where they took a 50-gram dose of a food in isolation and tested the blood sugar response to it. So it's a great start, but it's got some challenges. First one being, we don't normally eat that way. Like most people don't sit down and eat a 50 grams dose of broccoli, right? By itself. That's not how we eat. And we know that the amount, what you ate the meal before has a big result in your insulin response. It's called the second meal phenomenon, but also what else you're eating. Do you have fat with it? Do you have protein with it? Right? So all of these things, and also how fast you ate. Was it liquefied? So all of these things matter. So that's the first part, is that glycemic index will tell you how much your blood sugar responds to a food in isolation, but it doesn't measure fructose, because fructose doesn't raise your blood sugar. It goes straight to the liver. It's the only organ that can metabolize it. And if there's not enough room in the liver to convert it to glucose and store it as glycogen, then it's turned to fat. And it is very, very damaging to your body. It can create more gut permeability. It can raise your blood sugar. It's very sweet, which is why they like to use it, but it is super damaging in terms of risk for diabetes and heart disease. And the challenge when you see a label that says low glycemic index, like a label that might use crystalline fructose or apple juice concentrate or agave, is these things are super high in fructose, super low in glucose. So they won't raise blood sugar much, but they're pumping out a bunch of fructose, which again, then is raising blood pressure, making you insulin resistant. And also, because it's not triggering any satiety signals because it didn't raise blood sugar, means you're still hungry while this is going on. So you're making fat and you're still hungry. So when we really look at foods, we've got to look at a couple different things, which is why I tried to create a new rating scale for this that went beyond just glycemic index or even insulin index. Is I wanted to look at how much do foods impact your insulin and glucose, because they both matter. Like we know some of these artificial sweeteners don't raise blood sugar, but they make you insulin resistant. And then, or how much fructose does that food have in it? Because both those things are going to be problematic for your health. But then contrast it with how much, how much fiber does it have in it and how many nutrients does it have in it? Because then it'll help you make that distinction between, say, an apple that's got fructose. Apples are the highest fructose fruit there is, but apples also come with a lot of fiber, right? And a lot of phytonutrients like quercetin. But then you contrast that with, say, apple juice, which is just a massive condensed amount of fructose with no fiber whatsoever, or apple juice concentrate, even worse. So that's the difference, is really being able to look at something and go, it's not, a little bit of sugar in an apple that's a problem, but it is the sugar you're going to get in apple juice concentrate or apple juice is a big problem. So it's really understanding that impact that it has. And that's how you can go, okay, cold boiled potatoes that are now cold with resistant starch would be fine. French fries, with ketchup, which is also a big source of sugars, not fine, right?
Yeah, fructose is a real danger in sugar. And the problem is that a lot of healthy products, they claim to be healthy because they are low glycemic, like for example, products that are directed to people with diabetes. Because
right, which is the worst.
It's causing fatty liver, inflammation. It's like the chicken and the egg.
Fructose can make you insulin resistant. So one of the key ways to know if you've got a problem, if food's got a lot of fructose, is you'll go to the sugar grams on the label. And if it says, low glycemic index, yet they've got 10 grams of sugar, it means it's got a load of fructose. Because it can't be low glycemic index with 10 grams of sugar unless the sugar all comes from fructose. So you see how these labels can lie. So anything that says low glycemic index but has sugar grams on it, stay away from that. That's an easy rule of thumb.
Yeah, that definitely, no, as you said, almost all sugars are made equal, and sugar is formed by glucose and fructose. So it's about paying attention in the content, what is in the label, reading the labels.
Glucose is going to be a way better option than fructose.
Yeah. So maybe we could dig in a little bit more in how sugar is impacting our health and our body. What is really causing? How it impacts the brain and other parts of the body?
Yes. So, if you look at just kind of everyday stuff, because if you look at all the major lifestyle diseases, we know it feeds cancers, especially fructose feeds cancers. It's dementia. If you have elevated blood sugar, and even 90 as your blood sugar, your fasting blood sugar, you are 5 times more likely to have dementia. So like dementia, massive risks from eating more sugar, having more sugar in the diet, and diabetes, and osteoporosis, and heart disease, especially blood pressure, hypertension, elevated triglycerides. So the big major diseases, all of them, you can find that either sugar is exacerbating it or causing it. But then I look at everyday life. What is sugar doing to us for everyday life? It's breaking out our skin. It's making you tired. It's making you irritable. You can't think straight. You have brain fog. You've got belly fat. You've got bloat. So you've got joint pain, inflammation. So if you look at just everyday quality of life, it's just taking it down. And what I find with so many people is it's a really tough hamster wheel, because once you get onto it, you have to really do a concerted effort to get off of it, because your body gets used to being a sugar burner. You get used to using sugar as your primary fuel source. And once you're like that and you're a little bit insulin resistant, you're hungry and you're craving sugar. And when you eat sweet, you want more sweet, right? So you start to create the situation where it's hard to get off of that wheel. Although that was one of the big things, that one of my big goals was, how do you get people to be able to move from burning sugar as their primary fuel source to being able to burn fat, and to get out of craving sugar every single day? And you can do it. I just think that we've been doing it wrong and setting people up to fail, because we've been doing it cold turkey, which is the last thing you want to do.
Yes, so talking about the sugar burner versus fat burner, maybe we can go a little bit deeper into which is the difference between being one or the other one, the main difference.
Here's the easiest way to know that if you're a fat burner, or what my buddy Mark Sisson calls someone who's metabolically flexible. Someone who's a fat burner will forget to eat.
Yeah.
It's the same. They'll go, oh my gosh, a sugar burner will never forget to eat, because they're always flipping hungry. So they'll never forget. A fat burner can easily skip a meal. They're not going to become irritable, cranky, lose their mind. So, and if they lose weight, they can easily lose it off their waist. A sugar burner can not lose that belly fat no matter how hard they try. They tend to be hungry every couple of hours. They're craving sweets. They're craving carbohydrates. Obviously, you do not want to be a sugar burner. You want to be a fat burner. And it's really about making that transition so that your blood sugar and insulin are lower and your body can burn stored fat for fuel.
Yeah, really, actually, one of the signs that I do see in all sugar burners is that is the type of person that gets really, really nervous or gets really angry. Whenever it gets very hungry and there's nothing around and they cannot eat, that's a really big sign. Or for example, wake up really hungry in the morning, because the body cannot go without glucose for a very long time. So being sleeping during the entire night make them feel starving in the morning.
Yes, and if you're a fat burner, that means you're metabolically flexible. You can burn fat for fuel, you can burn sugar for fuel, you can burn ketones for fuel. So you can easily shift. It's like having a hybrid car. You can easily shift between these different fuel sources, right? And without like losing it, feeling angry, etc. So
yeah, so explaining a little bit more about metabolic flexibility, because it's true, there's people that decide to go on a really strict low carb diet to shift the body to burn ketones as an energy source. But let's say they have a cheating weekend or they go on a trip, and then when they come back, they're able to go back to their routine and they're able to move faster into the ketogenic state again.
Yeah, because they already have gotten there. I actually think that you have a very careful way to step into all of this, because before you ever think about going on a ketogenic diet, you first need to become metabolically flexible, right? But you also need to have good detox nutrients on board, because if you're burning more fat, you're freeing up more toxins in your fat cells, and you have to be able to get those gone. So someone who's metabolically flexible has gone through the process. And the way I like to have someone go through the process is, the very first thing you should do is just improve the quality of the food you eat. Like, unprocess your diet, start eating more vegetables, start eating more whole foods, minimally processed, right? And make sure that when you're doing that, you're eating from the trifecta of fat, protein, and fiber, so you're stabilizing your blood sugar. That's the easy, like, step one. And then the next step to that is, making a note to myself about that, is to start shrinking your eating window. You can't be metabolically flexible if you're eating breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack. So the first thing I tell people is to stop eating 3 to 4 hours before bed, close the kitchen, do not go to bed later, get a good 12-hour fast, then make it a 10-hour fast, get the snacks out. Start, you know, when you wake up in the morning, have some coffee, have some green tea, have some water, and wait till you are really hungry to eat. Then don't snack, because every time you snack, you raise blood sugar, you raise insulin. And if you're doing that all day long, you cannot access stored fat for fuel. So now make it that you're having 2 meals and 1 snack, or 2 meals only, or 2 to 3 meals a day. That's it. Then make sure you've got good detox nutrients on board, so you can get, as you're going into a ketogenic diet, you can get, and you're burning off fat, you can get the toxins out of your body. When you get to that point, yes, you can easily, you can blow it for a weekend, and it's not going to blow everything out of the water. You can tell if you're metabolically flexible if you like went somewhere for the weekend, you ate maybe something more than you should have, your weight didn't blow up, and you didn't go on a binge that then lasted a month. That you maybe went out to dinner, you ate more than you would have normally, maybe you had a little dessert, you probably don't feel great after you did it, and you don't really want to do it again the next day, and you eat a little less the next day, and you're away you go, you're fine, right? The person who's a sugar burner goes on that, and that just sets them off on a trigger where they're like off off the rails for a while. So
yeah, and it's not that you are off, it's what you said. We have to think about, before we cheat, we have to think about how do we feel after, the bloating, the constipation or diarrhea, all those side effects that are coming along that
it's
are
interesting.
actually...
The more you eat healthy and get used to it, and again, quality foods, fat, fiber, protein, shrinking the feeding window, going through detox, getting the sugar out, the more that you just step into those things, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens over time, you eat those other things and they're like, ugh, that didn't even taste good. Like, it just doesn't taste good. Part of what we have people do in the sugar impact diet is we first taper down their sugars. We find out where the high sugar impact foods are sneaking in, and we swap them out for medium and low sugar impact foods. And then we have 2 weeks where we kick fructose out altogether, and we just eat low sugar impact. And what's important about that is the more fructose you eat, the better your body gets at sending it straight to the liver and making fat from it. And we don't want to be good at that. Like, that is not, I do not want to be good at making fat from fructose at all, right? So you can undo that fairly quickly by taking it out. So that whole 2 weeks, we're getting good protein on board, lots of fiber, we're doing healthy fats, we're doing savory and retraining your taste buds to appreciate savory and spicy, and to have really balanced blood sugar, and stop snacking. And then you go back and you start testing, and you realize how sweet most foods really are. It tastes kind of disgusting, right? So you can retrain your taste buds and kind of wake them back up again in a pretty short amount of time, as long as you don't do it cold turkey. You taper into it.
So which are your suggestions in the sugar impact diet in your program to have an easy transition? Because a lot of people, when they try to shift from sugar to fat burners, they go through the keto flu and they have really severe...
Yeah, you don't need to do that. Like, you don't have to go through any of those things. I think the challenge is, like, someone wants to lose weight and get fit, and they want to do it overnight, but yet they didn't get out of shape overnight. They got out of shape over time. So I like to use diets to teach you to connect the dots between what you're eating and how you feel, and be able to pull things into how you eat every single day, and to get stuff on board so you'll be successful. I know that if the first thing I have you do is drop all the sugar out of your diet, go to like 5 grams of carbohydrates a day, let's say, go extreme keto, you'll feel like absolute crap. And, you know, someone who's feeling like absolute crap, it's very hard for them to continue. Quite often they'll give it about 3 days and they're out. But if I can walk you into it, and you'll still see results, but you'll also be able to see how you can put this into your everyday life and stay successful, then it's a whole different thing. And then you can cycle in and out of keto if you want to do it, you know, if it makes sense for you. But you won't feel like crap doing it. You don't need to feel like crap to be healthy. Like, it kind of seems counterproductive. How could I be healthy feeling like crap?
Yeah. So then to eliminate all those cravings that come along while you are making a change like this, or just because sugar causes addictions and then cravings. So which are the foods that you suggest in your program to help overcome those addictions? What the people can
Yes. Oh my
introduce?
gosh.
Yeah.
Sugar is like, you know, it's crazy when you start to look at the research on sugar and how addictive it is to look at what we do, feed our kids in school. Like you're just creating addicts. I mean, I think back to how I grew up. I do not genetically have a sweet tooth. And genetically, there's something called a sweet taster and sweet tooth. I don't have either of those things. I actually do not really like sweet. But I was raised on Pop-Tarts, Captain Crunch cereal, Cocoa Puffs, like those like cinnamon rolls on the weekends, dessert every night after dinner. And I had to break myself of that. So I didn't have a pure addictive personality, but I'd been trained to crave sweets. But then there are the people who have true addictive personalities. And we know that sugar triggers the same part of the brain as opiates do. So it's a really dangerous thing for us to do. The first step to breaking free of that is to get your blood sugar balanced. One of the biggest challenges for racing you into craving sugars, if your blood sugar isn't balanced, if it drops, the first thing your body is going to tell you to do is go get sugar, right? So the easy first step is to really focus on getting your blood sugar stable. And that means high fiber foods. So lentils, legumes, nuts and seeds, non-starchy vegetables, squashes, high fiber foods plus good fats, things like avocado. Avocado is like a 2-for-1 because you're getting fiber and fat. Same with nuts, but you know, wild fish, and then clean protein. So perfect example of this could be, say, a salad with deep green leafies, maybe some radishes and carrots, some walnuts, and avocado, olive oil dressing with lemon juice. Lemon juice is amazing because it acts like metformin. So does vinegar. It can lower your blood sugar response and help you be more insulin sensitive. And then a little bit of salmon. So protein, fat, and fiber, good blood sugar response. So we take out the highs and lows that can trigger a little bit of a binge or craving. And then making sure you're giving your brain the nutrients it needs, the amino acids it needs for the neurotransmitters, so it's not craving sugar. One of the challenges with poor sleep or a lot of stress is that it lowers serotonin and makes us crave sugar. So you got to look at those things too and fix them. Fix your gut microbiome. The other thing we know is that, you know, if you're using artificial sweeteners, you can actually shift your gut microbiome so it's more glucose intolerant, so you'll have trouble balancing your blood sugar. So you're fixing your gut microbiome, and also your gut microbiome can make you crave foods too. So it'll make you crave more sweet. And honestly, I've seen this shift happen in a week or two. So this isn't, because it might sound like a lot of work, but you can do it fairly quickly. But again, the first thing is pushing forward with the quality foods, clean protein, healthy fats, and lots of fiber is like step one. Add before you take away, right?
Yeah, it's about balancing the meals. Balanced meals help in shutting down the rewarding system that usually gets activated in our brain with sugar. So yeah, having a balanced meal, fat, the first one, which usually there was a phobia for fat, and now we put it always the first one, is always very important. And as you said, vinegar, lemon are also a really good addition to the program and the diet, and also very good for detoxification. But talking about gut and then vinegar, I do love fermented foods. That is one of my favorite go-to foods to put on my plate. I always put 1 to 2 tablespoons of fermented foods in my meal to help at the same
time. I bow down to you. I wish I did. You know, the fermented foods I like, sadly enough, are chocolate and wine. But vinegar, I think, is one of the ones that we miss so often. And it's definitely one that you want to include to help stabilize blood sugar, help with gut microbiome. And apple cider vinegar, oh my gosh, what a great, you know, I tend to use it in our detox programs. I'm like, this is one we should be doing all the time. It's easy to make a great salad dressing out of like just apple cider vinegar and olive oil and whatever herbs you love. But you can also put a little bit into your smoothies. You won't even notice it. little bit in your green tea.
Amazing for detoxification, healing the gut lining is really good. I do recommend everybody to put it 20-30 minutes before their meals in order to boost the release of enzymes and hydrochloric acid.
Yes, so good.
Yeah, it's really good. So then during the program, which kind of sweeteners do you recommend for people that have a sweet tooth?
Well, my goal is to get you off of all of them, because if you're using them, you're lighting up your sweet tooth, right? But I also am realistic and recognize that we do that over time, not overnight. So while I'm working on savory and spicy and sea salt and more, more of these very tight tastes, with especially like spicy is a great way to boost metabolism. There are some sweeteners that I love. My most favorite are cinnamon and vanilla, because cinnamon balances blood sugar and vanilla boosts serotonin. So that's my favorite. And I always know that we've gotten you to a really good place when you can notice the natural sweetness of those, because they are naturally sweet. And in between that, the ones that I will use are stevia, monk fruit, allulose, erythritol, are all ones that I'll let people use. But again, I'm trying to use the least amount of that and really taper down, because my goal is to get people to get rid of the sweet tooth and appreciate natural sweetness. But like, hey, Thanksgiving's coming and we're going to be using like probably monk fruit in most of our recipes that call for sweeteners. So
yeah, but it is about changing the taste. You get used to the real taste of the food. Like even blueberries are gonna be already sweet enough that the people don't really have to add any sweetener.
My mother growing up used to, she would put sugar, like she'd cut fruit in the morning and leave it out for everybody for breakfast and put sugar on it, like sugar on strawberry, sugar. I'm like, Mom, why are you doing that? It's just, so that really is, you really want to train your taste buds to appreciate natural sweetness. And, so you just keep tapering down and tapering down and tapering down until you don't need any of it. And that is the biggest thing I hear from people, is that when they go back and start to taste some of that stuff they used to use, they're like, ugh, it just tastes horrible.
So if we have to put the sugar impact diet plate on a diagram, how would it look like?
So the majority of it is non-starchy vegetables. My goal is to have someone have 5 to 10 servings of non-starchy vegetables a day, with a serving be a half cup cooked or a cup raw. So that's the big part. And then there's about a quarter of it's clean protein. And that would be things like wild fish, grass-fed beef, pastured pork and chicken, eggs if you are not intolerant, pastured eggs. And then another quarter of it is from healthy fats, things like avocados, raw nuts, and seeds. Of course, if you're eating pastured beef or wild fish, it goes over it on both sides. And then a little sliver of it is starchy carbs. And that would be things like, and I changed this since I wrote the book because of all the info on resistant starch. That would be things like green bananas, berries. It would be potatoes that have been cooled down to elevate their resistant starch, wild rice, winter squashes. So things that are way less refined, minimally processed, and very and high in fiber go over on that part. So that kind of like, it's sort of a quarter fat, a quarter protein, and then a whole lot of non-starchy vegetables in that sliver, right, of carbs. And these things shift, of course, depending on what's going on with you. Some people might need a little bit more in the starchy carb category. Some people want to go way less. I'm big on cycling that. I think that makes a ton of sense. I have a sugar impact diet plate for vegans, because what I've written into all of my books is I decided to not go vegan or paleo and to just let people self-select where they need to be. I fall in the Pegan, the Mark Hyman Pegan category. But, to me, it feels like religions, and I'm not going there, right?
Yeah, no, and that was my next question. If a person that is vegan could follow the sugar impact diet, because you mentioned only sources of animal protein before.
Yeah. So what happens is, since there's no pure sources specifically for protein in the vegan world, they either are going to share the starchy carb category, or they share the fat category. So that's where we'll use, lentils and legumes will roll into the carb category and the protein category, and the nuts and seeds will roll into the fat and protein category. So we build it out either way, so it's doable.
And it's also about controlling a little bit the macros, because a lentil soup can still be really fatty if you make it with coconut milk or other ingredients that are raising the fat.
Yes. So, I mean, all of these things depend on how you're putting this stuff together. Yeah. And it also, I remember someone was in one of my programs, they were very concerned about exactly the grams of all these things. Like, you gotta like, let it go. Like, please let it go. Like, I mean, your body is way smarter than this. It does not need this exact amount of grams at this meal in order to be healthy. You're going to have to start to get a feel. And that's what I like people to get in touch with, is they can kind of feel, oh, you know what, I didn't really have enough fat in that meal, or I didn't have enough protein. And as you start to food journal, you get really clear on what you need and how you feel. And I know that if my meal doesn't have enough protein and fat, I'm generally not very satiated. I'll be hungrier sooner, right? And if I eat more starchy carbs earlier in the day, I tend to not have the energy. They just make me more tired. So you start to connect the dots between how you feel and when's best for you. If I don't eat a little bit of a slower carb at night, I don't sleep as well. So, but again, that's me, and other people are different.
Yeah, and I do really like, what you said. Like, every person's body is different, and calorie counting doesn't work, and just measuring how many grams you have in here makes people crazy. I did it before. I had one of those apps in my phone, and I was getting crazy. So yeah. I like how you put the plate, just saying more or less, a quarter of this, a quarter of that, so people can have an idea and a picture of how the plate looks like without having to measure anything.
I hate that. That whole thing takes someone who's already in kind of an addictive place and makes it even worse for them. Use the body fat scale, waist and hip measurements, and basic subjective measurements like your energy, your mood, your focus, right? And then start to really connect the dots. Don't use the scale as like this weird judgment that so many women do. And they're like, oh my God, I go use it and go, wow, why did my weight go up 2 pounds? What happened over the last day or two? Because clearly I didn't eat 2 pounds more worth of food. Clearly I'm having an inflammatory response to something. What happened, right? So you use this to really be able to dial everything in so that weight, if you do need to lose weight, it's effortless and automatic, and you just feel good all the time. And when you don't feel good, it's the outlier. And then you can start to, like, yesterday, my stomach was hurting me and I go, what the heck did I do? Like, what did I eat that made this happen? Because it's a rarity, not normal.
Yeah, and then besides food, you already mentioned other tools that are very important to incorporate in our daily life, like, for example, fasting, which is really powerful to reset insulin hormone, growth hormone, and for sustainable weight loss. Mm-hmm. But what about exercise? You are also a fitness expert, and probably you hear many times, which exercise is good for me? When should I exercise? Morning, afternoon? So which are your thoughts?
So the best time to exercise is when you'll exercise.
Better than no exercise, definitely.
Here's the thing. Like, what does the research show? The best time to exercise is in the morning, both because of what's going on with your hormones and because you'll tend to be more, like, the chance you'll do it is higher because things didn't go on during the day that threw you off your plan. However, if you hate to exercise in the morning, which I hate to exercise in the morning because the morning is when I think the most, and it's when I do all my writing and brain stuff. And so I don't exercise in the morning, I exercise midday. And that is what works well for me. You got to find the thing that works well for you. You know, is it morning? Is it midday? Is it evening? And then if it is evening, just make sure that you're not doing anything that's messing with your sleep cycles. I lived in Japan, and I had to teach this evening aerobics class. And I would not go to bed for 5 hours after that thing. I ended it at 9 and I was going to bed at 2 in the morning. It was horrible. So that's where I'm not as big of a fan, but it depends on what type of exercise you're doing and if it is keeping you up. As far as what exercise, it really depends on what your goals are, but I'm not a fan of endurance style exercise because it breaks down muscle, it creates a lot of oxidative stress, it lowers your immune function. So I think that the first thing that we should do is wear some sort of tracking device like an Oura Ring or Fitbit, and just make sure you're actually moving more. I don't count that as exercise, because in order for something to count as exercise, you have to get hot and sweaty. It should hurt a bit. But that's step one, is just move more. Just like step one in a diet is improve the quality of the food you eat, add before you take away. Step two in exercise is to start to get more flexible and foundational. So that would just be making sure that throughout the day you are doing things to stretch the tight areas. So often when we stretch, we want to stretch the things that are loose because it's easier, but that's stretch the stuff that hurts to stretch. That's what you stretch. Then add in high intensity interval training, burst training. So quick little bursts, like if you were out for a walk, throw in, 4 1-minute sprints. And then once you have that dialed in, start adding in resistance training. And that's it. It's that, I mean, this is all that you have to do. It's pretty simple. And then find stuff that you love, or hire a coach, even better, or find a group of fit friends that you can work out with. Make it so that it's an easy way for you to stay fit. Like I just moved to Tampa, as I was telling you, and our backyard is a canal and we have paddle boards. So,
Nice.
Last week I jumped on the paddle board twice and went out and tootled around, and that's great. It's something different that I can do besides, I also have a gym in my house and I walk the dog and I go to the big gym. But find those things that you will do regularly, because working out once a year does not matter.
Yeah, it's like no exercise. Actually, it's funny that you just mentioned I'm sore today from paddling the other day.
Oh yeah, cool.
We had a long paddling, but it was really fun. Yeah, it's one of my favorite ways of moving the body.
Yeah,
so
it's so fun. I'm trying to figure out how big of a work. I mean, I know it's like, you can make it a bigger workout. So that's what I'm working on now.
When you keep it fast, yeah, you can, and there are a lot of waves actually, so you can make the workout. Yeah. So which would it be your last message, motivation for your audience today?
The big motivational statement. So the biggest reason people don't get successful in whatever they decide to do is that they don't commit to doing it. And what I find with most people is they'll make that commitment, but then they never get past that because they get so overwhelmed by all the stuff they have to do. And like today we talked about, all right, improve food quality, and then, shorten your eating window, and then make sure you're doing this type of exercise and add more vegetables and eat the trifecta. And you can be like, blah, right? So what I find is, in order for you to be healthy, the first thing you have to do, it has to start here first. You have to see it first. So the first thing is seeing where you want to be and what that's going to do for you. So you already see yourself there in your mind's eye, and then pick the one thing that you're going to start with. And if you're starting from like ground zero, awesome, because you're going to have amazing results. Start there and pick that one thing, being improve the quality of your food. Just start with that. And once you've nailed that one, then you can go on to the next thing. And ideally hire a coach so that they can make sure that you're staying accountable, or get yourself in a great support community, because that makes all the difference, especially if they're fitter than you. And then just keep going and look at everything that happens along the way, because there's going to be times you slip up, and that's fine. I've had a gazillion slip ups. I always look at it and go, okay, how do I make sure that one doesn't happen again next time? Like I know, there's certain foods I don't bring in my house because the evil twin comes out at night and will eat it. So just don't put yourself, once you learn these things, remember these things and use them, right?
Yeah, baby steps and patience is the key to success, I would
Yes.
say. Otherwise, we
Yes.
get overwhelmed and it's or everything or nothing, and it doesn't have to be like that.
No, especially not in health. Everything or nothing means you're alive or you're dead. We don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. Well, thank you very much for being here and bringing this amazing training about sugar. I think everybody's going to start reading labels, all the sugar that is hiding behind the food, and start working on the sugar impact diet. And thank you for all the content that you create to keep us all motivated in health and fitness. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Appreciate you.